what we like to say is we also want to make you independently healthy. We believe at the Living Proof Institute that health starts in your home. And we're so glad to be able to bring this information to you in the comfort of your home and really expand this information all over the globe. Typically, a lot of times we do workshops locally in our community over the weekend. And I'm glad to be able to offer this to everyone all over the world. So let's get right into it, Ricky. I know you got a lot to cover. So uh, let's get in.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you guys for joining us from all over. Super excited to bring you this information. And I know with currently what's going on in the entire world, everybody is sort of on edge. It's a very fearful time right now, but we really want to show you guys that you have a lot of control, and this is not something that you should be living in fear from. So today we're going to be talking about the unsung hero of the immune system. And that word immune system is very powerful as well. We're seeing posts all over the place about, hey, do this to boost your immune system, do this to support your immune system. But you're going to realize that there's a lot more to it. It's not that simple. It's not just doing one thing or taking one supplement that's going to help you out from that point. So I'll get right into it. I always like to start with my why. I have a very long health journey myself. I spent a good portion of my life, at the time, over half of my life, 15 years, in a very poor health state. So I grew up a very healthy kid. You can see on the left, I had an awesome childhood. But you can see on the right here, I look like a skeleton, right? This is actually me at my cousin's wedding. And I was fitted for this suit not too long before the wedding. And I dropped so much weight, it looked like I was a hanger wearing that suit. So at that time, I had a decade of irritable bowel syndrome. And my second symptom was chronic anxiety. Most of the time, I couldn't even leave the house. It was just not a good day for me. I would have no reason panic attacks. And it was just a really dark period of my life. And on top of that, no energy. I was always getting sick. I had a very poor immune system as well. And from there, I kept looking for answers. I kept looking for answers. This was my reality. And I know we're talking about the immune system today, but I really hope this is not the reality for any of you, that you walk into a place and you're already trying to picture where the bathroom is. Not a very fun way to live. So after going through this for 15 years, I visited practitioner after practitioner, and really, I didn't find my answer. Nobody was helping me get to the root cause of why I felt unwell. So I kind of felt like I was lost in the woods, kind of like how you guys might be feeling today with this viral uncertainty that's going on right now. We hear all these very fearful and fear-mongering type stories in the news, and whether they're factual or not, it's going to drive that anxiety response in us. So when you're lost in the woods, you start searching for answers, right? You want to personally find someone who can maybe help navigate you out. So I used to spend a lot of time online. And I always say the internet is a very, very dangerous place. You might type in a stomach ache, and WebMD is always going to spit back at you stomach cancer, and elbow pain, elbow cancer, right? It always ends in that C word. So the internet can be a very scary place, but it could also be a very lovely place. So today, if it wasn't for the internet in quarantine, I wouldn't be coming to you guys here today. So with my searching, with my ongoing want to help myself, I actually came across a webinar given by Sachin Patel on leaky gut. And as he was going through it, I was like, man, this guy's hitting every single symptom I have right on the head. Like, why had nobody ever told me this before? Like, why does nobody know about leaky gut? And when I realized the power of the gut, and I came in, worked with him as a patient, within 3 weeks, my anxiety went away. Within 3 months, my digestion was 90% better, and it just kept improving from there. Now, fast forward, I believe it's been 6 years now. I've worked with 1,000 patients, and I've helped them have the same journey that I had and the same level of success that I have as well. So when I was sick, I never in a million years thought that I would get married. This is me and my wife right after our wedding. We actually went for a little nice boat stroll through a lake by our house. This is us in Indonesia. So I never, ever thought I'd be traveling the world, especially not to Bali and Asia and these risky places. So this was not in my realm of possibility. And some of you that are watching may be going through a health crisis. And the reason I'm showing you this is I want to show you there's a way out. The next one is my heart. Here's my little guy, Arjun. He was born in November. He's about 4.5 months now. You can see full head of hair right from birth. So I never thought I would be capable of having kids when you're in a really rough spot. That's something that's not even in your realm of possibility. Now, I'm so passionate about this message, and I can't believe how many people continue to suffer because you don't know, like, what you don't know. You don't know that there's an answer out there for you. I preach this from rooftops. So I've gone all over Canada. Here's me on the left in Saskatchewan speaking with their naturopathic association. On the right here, I am in Winnipeg speaking to their naturopathic association on the true power of functional medicine. This is our tribe. So your vibe attracts your tribe. We also coach doctors all across the world. And this was at our live event last year. And you can see everybody super excited, beautiful faces. But this is our mission, to empower as many of you as humanly possible to be your own doctor, learn how to take care of yourselves, take personal responsibility, especially in a scary time like today. So I always like to share my values before I get into a presentation, because your values should be aligned with somebody that you either want to work with or somebody you're listening to. If we have a discrepancy in values, a lot of times the stuff I'm saying may not sink in, or you may disagree with what I'm saying. So I always like to be transparent right off the bat. So I'll go through some of my values. Love above all else, honesty, transparency, integrity, excellence. So you always want to strive to be the best version of yourself. So this is where you don't want to compare yourself to anyone else. We're all going through unique journeys, but you want to make sure that you are trying to be the best possible version of yourself. Ties nicely in with growth, with nature, vulnerability. So even me sharing my story with you, there is a large portion of my life I was embarrassed to talk to people about health problems. Like, nobody really wants to discuss these things, right? That they're kind of like behind the scenes things. Empathy. I've been there, and this is where a lot of patients I've worked with, they get a lot of safety and comfort in that. I've been in their shoes before, and that can really help because when we're going through dark days, somebody who has great health may not realize what a bad day truly looks like. Consistency, community. So it's absolutely amazing how many of you are online. Just scroll through the chat. Look at all these amazing places people are chiming in from, and you're communicating with them. We got people on from Europe, Australia, Canada, the US, all over. Freedom, timeless wisdom. So we always want to do things that have always been done in a positive way. So you don't want to necessarily forget about everything that's been taught to us in the past. And then the purpose of today's presentation, simply pay it forward. I really want to pass this information along to you because I truly feel this information could save lives. So working through functional medicine, I realized that we really focus on the tree branches too much, and that's where the main focus of conventional medicine is, but we forget about the roots of a tree. And if you guys have ever seen a tree trunk and you've seen the anatomy of a tree and how far those roots actually go, the tree might be a few feet tall, but the roots can be 5, 6, 7, 10 times that in size. So here's where we want to make sure we get to the root cause. So this is a pun. And when we look here at the top, we have the health conditions people are diagnosed with. At the bottom here, we have a lot of the variables that we don't often talk about conventionally. So even right now, with everything that's going on with the pandemic, are we really talking to people about their environment? Are we really talking to them about toxicity, sedentary lifestyle? We're quarantined. We're all sitting more than we should as well. Are we talking to them about poor self-image? These variables are not often discussed. So I'm very passionate about getting to these root cause mechanisms. This is one of the most powerful slides I can share with you. Commit it to memory, take a screenshot if you have to, but this really shows why people get sick, but it also shows why you can get sick for like out of the blue, but it always feels like it's out of the blue, but there was like a lengthy onset. There was a lengthy growth period going on. So you can see on the left side of this, we have the green healthy bar, and that's where we all want to be. And for the most part, all of us that are born humans, we're walking around, we're born healthy, right? And then comes some sort of trigger. So in yellow here, you can see the triggers. To tie it into what's going on, this is going to be the big trigger that everybody's focused on today, is the viral side of things. But triggers can be mental, emotional, They can be positive triggers as well, like overtraining is a trigger in the gym, or if you've been going through like a lot of stress at work, that's a trigger as well. But something triggers the disease process. And then you go through this long pre-symptomatic phase where not much is going on. So right now with the situation, like they always say, like quarantine yourself for 14 days if you've been exposed. That's what they feel that pre-symptomatic phase is. But for a lot of health issues, that pre-symptomatic phase could be a week, a month, a year. It could be a decade before the actual symptoms start. And that's when you hit this red block and the symptoms first start. So this is why somebody might be feeling absolutely amazing, and then one day out of the blue, their skin breaks out and all of a sudden they have eczema or psoriasis, or they could be walking around fine, living an active lifestyle, and then all of a sudden their joints swell up and they're diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. It feels like it came out of the blue, but it didn't. And what always breaks my heart is a lot of the patients I work with today, they're coming to me already in this purple phase, this last phase, and that's degeneration. That's when joints change, they become arthritic. That's when intestines are removed. That's when gallbladders are taken out. That's when people are structurally having degeneration take place. And that's damage. That's damage that is really tough to repair in many cases. So this is why I'm doing this presentation today, is I want to keep you guys on the left side of this page to the best of our ability. And you want to be very cognizant of what the triggers are in the environment. I hope many of you have heard this line before, but all disease begins in the gut. So I won't leave you guys in suspense much longer. The unsung hero of your immune system is your gut. Your gut contains 70 to 80% of your immune system. And we'll define what that means in a moment, but your gut is where all healing should begin as well, if that's where all disease begins. And I know it's not that black and white, but really working with so many patients who have been through chronic health challenges, this is where I typically see the biggest room for improvement. It's in gut status. So we really want to make sure that if somebody's having minor digestive issues, you nip it in the bud right away. You don't just ignore them and let them fester into things, because that can be an early warning sign. One of my favorite lines is listen to your body's whispers before you have to listen to its screams. So this is where we want to make sure that you're paying attention to those early signs. So I really want you guys to commit this to memory, really practice this in your day-to-day life. And I know I've mentioned it a few times on the presentation, but let's address the elephant in the room. The elephant in the room is the coronavirus situation right now. But here's the kicker, guys. And I'm not here to tell you coronavirus isn't a big deal. I'm not here to tell you like you shouldn't be worried about it. I'm not here to explain the inner workings of this virus and what it is. I'm not here to give you guys conspiracy theories, but the reality of the situation. We have coronavirus out there, but we've been dealing with viruses since the start of time. So we actually have a virome inside of us. It's a collection of all of the viruses we've been exposed to. And a virus is really just code. So everyone reacts uniquely. This is why, even though it has an extremely high clearance rate or success rate in people recovering from it, there's that percentage of compromised individuals who are getting like the negative symptoms, and in many times it becomes fatal. So coronavirus is something that's just taken the world by storm right now, but here's the harsh reality. And I really want you guys to take this reality in for a moment with me here. Will we all have to encounter COVID-19? So if you, and I'm not saying I don't, but if you do believe in herd immunity, if you believe in the germ theory, if you believe in the conventional kind of consensus opinion on how viruses work, the only true way to build immunity to a virus is to either be exposed to the actual virus. So that's what we're trying to avoid right now. We don't want those numbers going any higher. And number two is it's some artificial way of getting it, maybe getting a non-active. And I know that's where the vaccination angle comes in as well. But you're going to have to be exposed to something to build immunity. This is kind of like chickenpox, right? Like the only way we get over chickenpox is we're exposed to chickenpox. We let it do what it needs to our skin, and then we're on our way. We built immunity to it, right? So this is the concept with viruses, the only way you build immunity to it. Now, here's what I want to ask you guys. Would you want to deal with something like COVID with an amazing immune system, or would you want to deal with it with a weakened immune system? So just write in the comments if you want to be amazing immune system or weakened immune system. So I hope the answer is obvious. I'm probably going to get a few maybe funny comments here, but yeah, we want to make sure that you're looking after that. And this is in your control to a large extent. So you don't want to feel like you're losing power. Now, here's a list of what COVID appears to be made worse by. And I would say this is more than conclusive at this point. Most people that are suffering from COVID right now, they are suffering from outcomes relating to other issues. So when we look at things, insulin resistance and diabetes, a lot of the individuals that have been succumb to the condition, they've had these metabolic conditions. Hypertension is high blood pressure, cardiovascular disease, obesity, multiple comorbidities where they have more than one condition at one time as well. So here's where, when you think about it, if the body's already struggling with something, something else comes in, it's really tough. It's kind of like being in the middle of like a crazy project deadline. You're stressed out, you're putting in like 15-hour work days, and then all of a sudden an emergency happens where you got to just be derailed from that. Like, you're probably going to go through a breakdown. This is what the virus does. It adds another layer of stress into us. And here's the saddest part about all of this. There's a lot of misinformation out there. There's a lot of miseducation out there, or lack of education completely. So I hope none of you have this lack of information. And especially after today, I hope you guys walk away with a lot. But here's the reality. Many of these are 100% preventable. These metabolic inflammatory conditions, they are preventable. So something like diabetes, that's type 2, 100% preventable. It's a condition of lifestyle. Hypertension, your body never makes a mistake. If it's giving you these symptoms, there's a logical reason for these symptoms. So now is a very important time, because you want to take control of it. So having great health right now should be your top priority. So this is, it's crazy to say out loud, and I'm sure many of you have been following along, but people on Instagram, celebrities, you name it, even on your Facebook, it might be family and friends, they're eating junk food more than ever right now. Look at what's missing on all the shelves in the grocery store. It's the junk food, right? Like since the start of this pandemic, I can't say I've been to the grocery store once where vegetables, organic produce that I like to consume was not available. That hasn't happened yet. But guess what wasn't available? Toilet paper, different types of chip bags, chocolate bars, like all of this junk food, right? But it's a very paradoxical situation. People are having pizza night more than ever. They're drinking more wine than they ever have. They're more sedentary than they ever have. You are actually opening up the doors to poor outcomes in the future by behaving like this. So a great example I can give you is a diamond. Let's say you have the cleanest, nicest, highest grade stone. If you just polish one side of that diamond, it's not going to get you very far. It's not going to shine beautifully. You polish the whole thing and you have this gorgeous sparkling stone, right? So this is what health is like. You can't just take an immune booster, quote unquote. Like, yes, it can help you, but it's going to be helping one branch of your health. So you taking vitamin C might help you, but guess what vitamin C is not going to help you with? All of that sugar you might be taking in, all of that alcohol you might be drinking, all of that junk food you might be eating. So now is a time for you to really practice what you preach. I'm sure many of you on this call have acquired so much information that you've implemented a lot of it, you've been paying it. It's almost like investing in the stock market. If you're someone who's been investing in yourself for a very long time, now is when you get the dividends. When this type of fear is going on, now is when you reap the rewards. So this should be your top priority. So everyone in the comments, I want you to write, I promise. And what I want you to promise is that you're going to do this. You're going to make health your top priority for the remainder of your life. I was going to say the remainder of this pandemic, but really the remainder of this existence of ours, because you want to live your best life. You don't just want to be stuck in your ways. Now, going through the comments, amazing. I'm seeing so many of you making this promise. So really say it out loud. Say, I promise. I know typing it is one thing, but say it out loud. Say it to someone if you're watching it with a loved one or a family member or friend. Say it to them. Social accountability is absolutely huge. But I just want to ask you guys, just to get a feel for the room, why are you guys here today? Like, what do you want to learn the most? What are you concerned about? What are your health challenges? And I'll just wait for a few to come in here. Awesome. So I see that we have D. Gibbs. I promise to make my health my top priority for the rest of my life. I've already done so for the past 25 years, but I'm going to renew my efforts. That's an awesome comment. Awesome, Sarah. I promise I filled my house with healthy food. So some of the challenges, a lot of cellulose. I'm looking for any tips to help with my gut pain and nausea. Okay, so you are in the right place. Next level health from Sachin. So that's what we're all striving for. sugar addiction, digestion, tension, anxiety. I promised as New Year's resolutions in 2018. So that's interesting. It's 2020 now. So let's make them stick. And here's a kind of a habit forming trick is uh, a New Year's resolution often fails because it's tied to like a time of year, right? So you don't want to make this a New Year's resolution. You want to make it a life resolution. Like this should be something that you bring in for life, and this should be part of your lifestyle. So for anybody struggling with sugar addiction, anybody struggling keeping up a diet or anything like that, I'll teach you guys a really super trick that I've picked up in the last few months. Language is very important. So instead of saying, hey, I have to eat healthier, I have to take this supplement, I have to drink 3 liters of water, I have to move my body, you want to say, I get to eat healthy. That's huge, right? In itself. You know how many people there are on the planet who can't afford healthy food or can't even find food? People die from hunger. Actually, more people have died from hunger over a year than coronavirus. And that's going to be a trend that probably remains for a very long time. So you want to say, I get to eat healthy. I get to have clean water. I get to exercise. Now you reinforce that it's something you want to do. When you say, I have to do it, somebody else is forcing you to do it. Awesome. So I see Helena says going through some gut protocols with you. So looking to get healthier from that side. A lot of individuals, I'm loving myself. So this is awesome, guys. I'm so happy to see that there's such a wide variety of reasons for being in here. So great job. So I wanted to get into why the gut is the unsung hero of the immune system. And I'm going to share 3 concepts with you. The first of them is going to be your gut gives you something called mucosal immunity. So this is where I had mentioned 80% of your immune system is located in your gut. It's located in tissue and it's called your GALT, G-A-L-T, and stands for gut associated lymphoid tissue. And this is where you want to really keep a good barrier. You want to keep protected. But a lot of us really don't know much about this mucosal immunity. We don't even think about it this way. So before we even start, let's define what the immune system is. So here we have a lovely woman walking through the forest. What's she walking through? A pretty natural environment, right? And what does our immune system do? It interacts with our environment and protects us from threats. So right now in this room, I'm indoors, I'm not outdoors as I'm doing this, and outdoors would have other risks, but just breathing in air, you're getting dust particles, you're getting bacteria, you're getting stuff in the air. We're exposed to stuff all day long, and it's this amazing immune system that keeps us healthy through this entire process. So that is the way we communicate with our environment. We live in harmony and symbiosis with our environment. And this is where like things that come in that sort of derail that balance, that's what produces illness in the body. So your mucosal immunity is something you want to learn to protect heavily and really focus on what it is. But for those of you that this is a brand new term, I'll take a bit of a deeper dive here with you. So what is the immune system? It's a collection of different types of cells. There's also antibodies involved, different tissues in your body. And this is how we defend off threats. This is how our body is able to withstand food sensitivities and different food proteins. And this is why like we might go somewhere with a group of friends on vacation, 4 out of 5 people are perfectly okay, but 1 gets sick. Even though they ate and drank everything the same, that person, his immune system couldn't tolerate the threat they got from that trip. So this is where we want to protect it. Now, your immune system, there's 2 types. You have your innate immune system, and this is the immune system that you're essentially born with. This is the immune system that develops first, and it's your 24/7 on guard immune system. It's what's always monitoring your environment to see how it can help you out. But it's not a very strong immune system to bigger threats. So what happens when we get hit with bigger threats is our adaptive immune system comes on. And our adaptive immune system helps us adapt to those threats. So if somebody, for example, gets hit with a flu bug, what happens is their innate immunity is going to try to help them out. But after a while, it's going to be like, hey, I got to call in the big guns. And that's when your adaptive immunity kicks in and starts dealing with this. It may produce a fever to help you get rid of it. But 3-5 days, a week later, you should start to feel like your normal self. But here's the problem, adaptive, that word. A lot of times when you force this immune system, it becomes maladaptive. So a lot of chronic health issues, chronic disease, it's maladaptions. Diabetes is maladaption. Your body couldn't adapt to the influx of sugar coming in, so it had to produce this condition. So if we didn't have language, like diabetes would have been in our body. We wouldn't have named it, we wouldn't have labeled it, but it's something that's in there as a maladaptation. If somebody's blood pressure is high, your body has to produce that blood pressure to keep you alive, because there might be clogs in the arteries. There might be a lot of inflammation going on. You might be overweight. You may have sleep apnea. There's many variables here. So that's why this adaptive immunity is so important. And then when we factor these two immune systems in, they are going to be in both of the immune categories I'm about to mention next, and that's the locations of immunity. So you first have your systemic immunity, and that goes everywhere. So if you think about what travels everywhere in your blood or everywhere in your body, I gave it away, blood, then we have lymph as well. So your lymph nodes are part of this, your spleen's part of this, but this is essentially how we form immunity all over our body. The second one is the mucosal immunity. And mucosal immunity is the first line of defense between you and your environment. So this is why I really wanted to focus on this with you guys today, because there's 3 different types. And some of these you may have heard of. The first one's going to be the respiratory tract. So when we think about the coronavirus situation going on right now, what is it affecting most? And what's the most negative outcome of it? It starts to affect the lungs and breathing, shortness of breath. So it affects the respiratory tract. And that's where even like a lot of like SARS, the RS stands for respiratory part of it. So we want to make sure the respiratory isn't compromised even before somebody is bombarded with any sort of additional stress. So this includes your nose, your trachea coming down into your lungs and the lobes of your lungs as well. And then coming down further, we get into your genital urinary tract. This tract is pretty much how we pee. So it includes your ureters, your bladder, it has your kidneys as well. So this is a different tract in the body, but it also protects us from threats. So as an example, people can get yeast infections, people can get bladder infections. So this is an issue that's in the genital urinary tract. And then the bread and butter here, the gastrointestinal tract. And this is really the heaviest and most powerful barrier. It's the one that comprises the majority of your mucosal immunity. And this is what you want to protect the most. But a lot of the people that I see in the office today, they're coming in with compromised gastrointestinal tracts. They don't have optimal mucosal immunity in these. So taking a bit of a deeper dive here and relating it to what's going on right now, here was an article in Forbes, and this article is actually all over. It was based on some very early research out of Wuhan, but they mentioned that stomach ache and diarrhea may be among the first signs of COVID-19 symptoms. So when we think about that, that tells us the gut is involved, right? Like if that's one of the first symptoms, the only reason you would produce that symptom is that mucosal membrane has to be affected. So yes, it could affect the respiratory tract, but you can have viruses affect the gut as well. So when we know this, like going back to what I said earlier, would you want an amazing gut immune system to help you deal with threats, or would you want one that's been compromised after years and years of insult? You would obviously want the stronger immune system. When we look at our gut here, and here's a cool little image, what you see inside of us here, you see this, the liver up top, that's the darker colored 2-lobe thing right at the top there. Right under that is your stomach. And then we have your intestines, and all that stuff in the middle, that's your small intestine. And that's approximately 22, 23 feet. And then we have the big long tube around it, and that's your large intestine. This is what makes our gut. And inside of us, we have a microbiome, a collection of bugs. And these bugs live harmoniously or symbiotically. They live in a very kind of back and forth sort of nature with us. They have a give and take relationship, but it's in balance. So we need them, they need us, and they play a deep role in your immunity. So your immune system actually receives information. It receives molecular signals from these gut organisms, and that can actually tell your immune system to ramp up or ramp down. So this is where if anybody watching right now has a food sensitivity, as an example, what's essentially happening is your gut is getting a communication, a signal that, okay, this protein's in there. Our body doesn't like this protein. It shouldn't be getting into these parts of our body. Let's tag it with an immune response, and let's actually have an immune response come along. So you're supposed to be living in harmony with these things. And we have about 30 trillion human cells. And then we have almost 2 times that in gut bugs inside of us. And if you have a foreign gut bug come in, now this is a foreign invader, that can kind of disturb the entire ecosystem. Like think about like a foreign island somewhere that has amazing wildlife, everything is in balance. They have like the perfect amount of birds, the perfect amount of wild boar, like everything is just perfect. Nothing is becoming extinct. Now, let's say we just drove a helicopter or something over top and we dropped a couple of lions on that island. What would happen to the wildlife? It would go down and down because now a giant predator has been introduced. So this is what our gut's like. If you get a foreign pathogen come in, like a parasite, and we're like, no one is invincible. We're exposed to these things all over. You can take a trip anywhere really and get hit with it there. This is something that can completely disturb your internal environment. And this overactivity of your gut's immune system can cause something called leaky gut. So when you start to develop leaky gut, this is when things just start coming into your bloodstream from the gut. Another thing to really focus on here, you can see on the right, they have some bugs isolated, and they look like pretty angry, mean bugs with those spikes on them, right? Well, what happens with a lot of bugs in our gut, they create waste. They're just like me and you. They want to eat and then they want to get rid of their waste. So they steal your nutrition and then they start getting rid of their waste. And that waste is inside of you. One of the types of waste some of our organisms make, it's called a lipopolysaccharide, LPS. And it's a very, very bad toxin. It's such a potent toxin. When they actually want to give rats Alzheimer's disease for studies, they inject their brain with LPS to break it. And that's how they get Alzheimer's and rats with dementia. If they want to give a rat type 1 diabetes, they inject their pancreas with LPS until the beta cells break, and now they have type 1 diabetic rats. We have pounds of this stuff inside of us, but it's supposed to stay in our gut. It's supposed to stay within that mucosal immunity. But what happens is you get a leaky gut. So this is what a leaky gut is. And here's your mucosal lining, essentially. So these big pink things you see with the fingers on top, that's your gut cells. And they're blown up for picture day here, but they're really thinner than a razor blade. So when you look at this under a microscope, it just looks like a carpet altogether. It looks like a shaggy carpet. But again, it's microscopic and it's super thin. And these colorful little things holding the cells together, these are protein bonds. So this is what actually holds these things tightly. And that's what prevents stuff from getting into the bottom of this slide. And that's going to be the bloodstream. So at the top of it, we see all the stuff inside of us. You can see the yellow guys are the parasites, the gold bulbs are the viruses. All of these things can potentially leak through if we have a leaky gut going on. So this is why working on your mucosal immunity is so, so vital for you to create health all over. You don't want to just create it in one process. You want to create it in all systems. So when you work on the gut, you're going to have it coming in from all ways because you're absorbing nutrition better. You're clearing out waste better as well. Now, this is a concept that feeds into that leaky gut. The same blood goes everywhere. So I won't have any of you comment, but many of you watching may have a pre-existing diagnosis. So you may have an autoimmune label. You may have Hashimoto's, you may have psoriasis, you may have rheumatoid arthritis, you may have diabetes, you may have hypertension, you may have any of these conditions, metabolic or inflammatory. And there's one concept that you really want to understand. You can't isolate just one organ. So when somebody has diabetes, most of the focus is on the pancreas. That's what makes insulin. Well, guess what? The same blood going to the pancreas is going to your brain. It's going to your lungs. It's going to your intestinal tract. The same blood causing joint inflammation in people with inflammatory arthritis, it's going to their heart. It's going to their liver, their kidneys. So the same blood goes everywhere. So if you don't work on the blood, you don't work on the foundations of health, it's really tough to create health and a good immunity all over. This brings me to my second point about the gut as the unsung hero, and that's that the gut has this amazing relationship with the brain. We call it the gut-brain axis. So your gut and your brain are always communicating. This is why, like you've probably heard that pun where, like, if it feels right in your gut, or that saying, or hey, like trust your gut instinct, right? The reason this is true is because you have this relationship. So when something typically feels off, that's a sign from not only your gut, but your brain. It's one in the same process. So you want to pay very close attention. An example I can give you is if you're stressed out about something, you may notice that you have anxiety as an example. So you may feel anxious. That might upset your stomach. Or if your stomach is upset, it's really tough to think straight. So if I made you write a very difficult exam, it's really difficult to do that. So the one thing that's going on, unfortunately, right now, and just type it in the comments, let's be vulnerable. That was one of my big values. How many of you are feeling fearful or anxious with the current reality of the world right now? And then if you're not, also let me know and let me know why. So I'll just monitor comments here. Good points. I know we had an individual say it comes in waves, right? And it's kind of meant to do that as well, because what reminds us? It's usually the media. So another big pro tip, if there's one thing you guys take home today, stop watching the news. Like if anything big happens, you'll hear about it on its own, but it's designed in a way to make you more fearful. So I see, yes, I'm a grocery store person, freaking out because I already have immune related issues and I'm 71. Um, not so that's actually beautiful, Colin. Not living in fear, but I'm extremely respectful of the seriousness. So I must say I agree with that. I would say that's quite accurate in terms of how I feel as well. Yeah, I know some of the other pressures, and thank you for sharing, Charmaine, is that a lot of kids are home now. So life has been flipped around. You're not only working from home potentially, but now kids are homeschooling. There's a lot more responsibilities. But here's the thing, guys. You can see that no one is alone in this, right? We all experience similar emotions. We all have similar responses to what's going on. Now, the problem is that when you become fearful, you actually direct blood to the wrong areas of your body. Your immune system actually decreases when you're in a stressed out state. This is why when you think about most of the time when we're prone to getting sick or even diagnosed with a health condition, it's when we're going through immense amounts of stress for too long. So if you're living in fear, it's actually a catch 22 because you need to have an amazing immune system. You need to feel good to have an amazing immune system. But right now, there's this harsh reality going on that is making us fearful, anxious, and you might not even be concerned about yourself, but a loved one, like a family member, a friend. So the fear is completely normal. You want to embrace it, but you want to also come at it with love because this is also one of the best times, and you really want to see it that way. We can't change what's going on. I can't press a button and just erase everything, but how we react to the situation is powerful. So if this situation is what it takes to make sure you commit to living your best life, eating the best food, taking care of yourself, making self-care a priority, you should honestly say and write it down that this is actually the best thing that ever happened to us. I shared my story with you guys at the start. Getting sick was the best thing that ever happened to me because I would not be in front of you. I would not be able to change as many lives as I've had the pleasure of impacting if I was not in that position, right? So we want to pay it forward. So really realize that fear could be a great motivating force, but you want to transmutate it into love. But I'll talk to you guys about the science here. So it's going to get a little bit technical here. Here's the vagus nerve, and not everything that happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. So the vagus nerve is this nerve, and Vegas in Latin means wanderer. It wanders all over your body. So it actually starts in your brain stem, so the back of your brain, and it actually goes all throughout. It hits your voice box, your palate muscles, your thyroid, goes down to your heart, your lungs, parts of your intestinal tract as well. And this is actually what turns on your rest and digest nervous system. So this is what turns on your parasympathetic nervous system, the nervous system that calms you down. The fear and anxiety, what that does is it causes you to go fight or flight or sympathetic. So these are the two branches of our nervous system. Guess what? When you become sympathetic, fight or flight, all the blood from your central trunk goes to your arms and your legs in priority for you to fight this thing or run away from it. Where does the blood not go? Your lungs, which is a big concern right now, your digestive organs, which is always a big concern, your reproductive organs. So if anybody's having challenges with infertility or anything like that, chronic fight or flight responses break down the body. You shut blood the wrong way. Under stress, some vital organs only get 5 to 10% of the blood flow they normally would. So this is like scary to think of, and blood carries function. If you can't get blood flow to somewhere, it's kind of like having like an electrical outlet, but you can only get 5% electricity to the device. Do you think your phone's going to charge if the charge cable only has 5% in it? No, it's not going to do much at all, right? So this is why the vagus nerve is so important. But when you live in a fear state, this vagus nerve gets completely shut down. So, oh man, I see Joyce. You're scaring me more than TV. I'm diabetic. You shouldn't be in fear. So, my apologies if you're interpreting like that, but I'm empowering you because you have great responsibility and great control over that condition as well. So, if you start living and working from love first and you start looking after yourself, you eat the best foods, you move your body as it's intended to move, these things are going to be highly, highly beneficial for you in the near future. But this is the reality. So, it's not a fear thing. This is the reality we all must face. I want to share with you guys a cool case study. And in this case study, this is someone who's very near and dear to me. I really got to see the power of the brain and the power of mindset and the way we think in healing. So this is a very young gentleman, and we can see his picture here. Here's Stephen, and here's him with his mom, Brenda. And you can see he's a happy kid. Everything in his life was going great. He was very, very athletic. He played hockey. He played baseball competitively as well. And he was 13 years old when we met. He was referred to us by another patient I was working with in a gut capacity. He lived a very active lifestyle. He started to notice blood in his stool one day. And he went to his doctor, and he was told it could potentially be from like a fissure, which is like a deeper cut, or a constipation in the colon. He was given stool softeners, and over 6 to 8 weeks, he developed severe cramping. Pain and bleeding stool started every single day. Started to lose weight very rapidly. He had a colonoscopy at Sick Kids Hospital, which in Toronto is the biggest hospital, and it's the biggest children's hospital as well, and they're very cutting edge. He was diagnosed with severe ulcerative colitis. Ulcerative colitis is an autoimmune condition. So as I was talking to you guys about the gut, when the gut becomes dysfunctional, when it becomes overactive, sometimes that activity can start attacking our own body. So part of having a healthy immune system is to make sure our body never attacks our. Hey guys, can everybody hear me now? There we go. So I don't know why that happened. I think it was just a small disconnection. Everything's good? Okay. And let me just share my screen again. One moment. So I'll pick back up from here, and I'm just going to open the chat so I can see you guys. Perfect. So slight technical glitch. So I was talking about Stephen's story and ulcerative colitis. So he was diagnosed with severe ulcerative colitis, and steroid meds were ineffective. So talks began to remove his intestines. So this is a 13-year-old kid who was about to have his intestines removed. So you can see here is what severe ulcerative colitis means. So when we look at this on the left, this is what a normal healthy tract looks like. But as we go over to the right, we get mild, moderate, and severe. So on that last slide, do you think you're going to have good immune health if your intestines look like that? Probably not, right? And most definitely not. And even before that, so many people coming in today, they might fit into the first or second category where they have some level of inflammation taking place, but they're not all the way there. It's not a full-blown autoimmune condition. So here's his CRP. So at Sick Kids, they admitted him. They were talking about removing his intestines. CRP is a marker that tracks inflammation in the body. And you can see here on the left, we have March 11th from last year. And as we come down, we get to about 20 days. So you can see it gets to about April 1st there. And then you can see his CRP. Normal CRP should be less than 1. His first reading is close to 40. And then as you can see the peaks, it's kind of like a stock here, right? It peaks at 120. Starts to come back down, then there's another peak, starts to come back down, then it starts to peak again. So I started wondering, and I asked the mom, I'm like, what was going on? Like, what happened at these peaks? And she goes to me, she's like, you know what? Here, I have everything written down. She told me at this peak that he was told that they might remove his intestines. So he had this big, massive fear response. At this peak, he was told that he's going to be admitted to the hospital and he can't go play hockey. Like he's stuck here for at least a couple of weeks while they figure things out. Then the diagnosis came, then the medications came, then he got worse and worse and worse. So every time that his CRP, the inflammation in his body went up, there's something foundational going on, but the fear and the anxiety and the brain, that gut-brain axis, is what drove it higher. So I had talks with him very early on when we first met. Our first ever appointment was over the phone. They were actually in Sick Kids Hospital. And then the second one, they took a leave of absence for one day to see me in office. And we didn't even have time for testing with them. Like I wanted to start them on things that helped them right away. So the first thing I did was talk to him about mindset. I talked to him about the fear. And I told the mom, I'm like, get him out of the hospital as much as possible. Let him be a normal kid to the best of his ability. And then after working with us just for a very short time, you can see that after his last peak there, it was a steady decrease. So this is where his CRP came back to normal. And while this was happening, the mom was emailing me and she's like, oh my God, it's back. It's further down. It's further down. It's looking amazing. And the doctors finally started to talk about letting him out, and the colostomy was taken off the table. He was able to keep his intestines. So here's his success story. We listened to him carefully. We coached him on the power of mindset when it comes to healing. We encouraged him to get out of the hospital and do the things he loves. I told his mom, take him to all the things he loves. So they went to the Hockey Hall of Fame. They walked around the mall. They pretty much helped him live like a healthy kid at that time. They eliminated junk food from his diet and used anti-inflammatory foods. Now, this is the biggest paradox, because what happens a lot of the time, I shouldn't say we, but people eat hospital food. If I just spent 30 days in a hospital as a vacation, let's say, and I just ate from the cafeteria every day or what they serve to patients, my health would dramatically bomb by the end of that. It would feel terrible. So it's kind of crazy that people who are like not in great shape, they're further being bombarded by this stuff. Like when my wife delivered our little guy 4 months ago, I remember they would bring her the meals and we would just take a look and be like, this bread looks like a brick. And then we would look at the juice and it's not even real juice. It's like 80% sugar with a little bit of water in there, right? So this stuff is going to do you harm, but in the comfort of your own home, you can create health. So make those decisions at home. Like you don't want to be losing the battle at home. You're definitely going to lose it on the outside if you're losing it at home. We immediately started him on a gut support supplemental protocol. So this is a protocol that we've been working with for a long time and we've perfected. And it's something that we've gotten to the point that we don't even need testing the vast majority of the time to implement and have a huge response with. So working with them, here's an email from just earlier this year. So about 8 months later, with 2020 upon us, I just wanted to reach out and share his latest labs as well as the summary. All is looking very good, and his CRP has been normal since November. His rheosine calprotectin, which is another inflammation level, is down to 384 from 5,400. And then he continues to grow and gain weight. He's given up hockey to focus on baseball. His school academics are excellent, and he seems to be a very socially healthy, soon-to-be 14-year-old. So literally from a mindset start, this is somebody who's about to lose their intestines at 13. This is someone who is not going to get a fair shot at life going forward. And this is where fear comes in. So for those of you who are living in fear, know that it's going to exacerbate anything. And I'll ask anybody to comment if you do have any health condition. You don't have to say what you have, but how many of you feel worse or your health condition feels worse when you're stressed out? Just say yes or I. So we're seeing a lot of yeses there. And then I'll ask you guys the opposite question. How many of you feel better on vacation? Probably everyone, yeah. So this is the gut-brain axis. There's a reason for it. It's not just minor things going on that cause this. Here's actually a video that his mom sent to us. Whoops, let me try to play this for you guys. So here's him just a few months ago doing a backflip. He's actually regained his weight. He's regained his athletic prowess as well. So what were his most impactful factors? Nutrition, mindset, absolutely huge. Lifestyle, that's the way you maintain any results for the rest of your life. Movement, you don't want to be sedentary right now. Now is the time to make sure you still move your body. You still have that base there. Your nervous system. And that's where you want to understand this fight or flight and this rest and digest mechanism and how that vagus nerve ties them together. And community. So this is kind of what bugs me the most. It bugs Sachin the most, is like we've been quarantined, right? So we have been socially isolated. So it's not social distancing anymore. It's social isolation. People are more alone than they ever have been. And many studies have validated this now, that social isolation kills more people than smoking, drinking. It causes more health repercussions than a lot of the big things that we think harm health. So that's why people in jail would rather be surrounded by other criminals than be put into social isolation. So the power of community is absolutely huge. So I'm not telling you to throw a big get together, but make sure you're staying in touch with people you love. Make sure you're still being socially active. You're not just cooped up at home. That's going to be a tough thing to out supplement. And here he is skydiving not too long ago. Brings me to my third point, and this is one of my favorite points, and that's pathogens. Pathogens just means bad guys, and we're exposed to them all day. So, what is COVID-19? It's a pathogen. It's a pathogenic virus that can really affect the body in negative ways. Else are we exposed to? We're exposed to parasites. We're exposed to harmful bacteria. We're exposed to harmful yeast species in our environments as well. So, there's tons of things that act pathogenically in us. And when we factor in what I've taught you guys so far, we have our mucosal immunity, we have our gut brain axis. So you have the brain controlling a lot of this immunity as well. And then the third thing is going to be these foreign invaders, because I always tell patients, we talked about vacation, and I know I saw Kauai and Hawaii, and like that's actually one of my favorite places on the planet. But you could be sitting on a beautiful beach in Hawaii, but if you have a pathogen inside of you, guess what? Your body's stressed. Your immune system is stressed. Your immune system is working overtime. And that's going to be something that's very tough to out supplement. If you're somebody who's been taking supplements for a very long time, and every time you take something, you don't feel much different, I'll teach you guys another very important concept. It's addition by subtraction. So a lot of times we focus on addition by addition. So what healthy food can I eat today to move the needle forward? What supplement can I add in to move the needle forward? But take somebody who eats fast food 7 days a week. If they add in one salad a day, do you think that's going to make a dramatic difference in their health? Probably not. What would make the bigger difference in their health? Cutting out the fast food, right? So this is the same thing with these pathogens. What makes a difference? Just me throwing random probiotics and digestive enzymes and all of this into you? Those have a time and place, but the bigger win is typically getting rid of one of these things if it's in there. And the vast majority of us have these things in there. Our whole team does yearly cleansing to get rid of some of the stuff we may have acquired over the year. But these things are going to keep you back. They're going to be a brick wall in the system, and they take a big toll on your immunity. So if you kind of think about your body having a bag of bugs, you can handle a little bit in that bag. You can have small things in that bag. You might be able to deal with some bacteria overgrown, some parasites, but now throw in 100-pound weight like a virus that's going around right now. In somebody who already has a pretty loaded bag, that response is going to be much worse. So you want to be really, really careful and really, really thorough in also finding out if this is a blind spot for you. So think back to if you've been feeling unwell since a vacation, since something happened to you, this is how you can trace it back. Here's some of the common, or I shouldn't say common, but some of these are common, some of them are not. But these are some of the bigger bugs we see in practice that are true brick walls, that they're hard to get around until you get rid of them. So we see patients that do pass worms all of the time. So we have whipworm, we've seen tapeworms. We've seen tapeworms a couple of feet to like 4 or 5 plus feet. So this was a big one. Roundworm, Giardia. Giardia is a microscopic one, but it's one that is commonly found from jumping into lakes. It causes quote unquote beaver fever. It's native in beaver GI tracts. And if you get contaminated with some of their byproducts, you can pick it up and it's not so fun inside of us. But these things are everywhere in our environment. So I know I have a lot of awesome patients from different parts of the world. They live locally, but they're from different parts of the world. So South America, India, Africa. And oftentimes they've told me as kids, they used to do like almost like a ritualistic cleanse every year. And every year without fail, they would poop out worms. They just knew it was in the environment. But when I asked them, why'd you stop? They're like, we just thought Canada's clean. The US is clean. It's hand sanitizer central. Like we're not exposed to these things. But guess what, guys? We live with pets. We travel the world. We eat food. We eat raw foods like sushi. I'm not saying anything bad with that, but you can easily be infected by that. I want to share a case study in terms of how powerful this is. So here's another gentleman who's a very young guy, 29-year-old male. He had Crohn's disease, which is another autoimmune condition affecting the gut. So another immune-based condition that starts in the gut and it affects the gut. He had blood in the stool. He had pain in his abdomen daily. He was currently on a plant-based diet because it was easier on his gut. He just felt animal protein wasn't agreeing with him. So I don't follow or support or like say everybody should be on one type of diet. Like I've seen people thriving with all different types of diets. However, the one thing you want to do is that decision should be yours. You shouldn't be forced into that decision. So if you're somebody who gave up meat because you're paying for that meat and going more plant-based made you feel better, good. But if you just fail to understand or realize why you couldn't digest that meat in the first place, guess what? You're not going to have much success with the protein on the plant-based side either. So you want to make sure you're working on your foundations. So I do see in the comments, I contracted Giardia in Canada. Yeah, so absolutely. No one is invincible. No one. He was determined to get to the root cause. So he was a very motivated guy. He reminded me of myself, and he found us through a live event. So this is what Crohn's disease is. I showed you guys ulcerative colitis, which is mostly in the colon. Colitis means inflammation of the colon. This one can be more spread out, and it can even be chunked off in sections, but it's a similar type of condition where it's uncontrollable inflammation to a point. And the analogy I want to use here, so with Gabe, we worked with him. We put him on a cleanse. He actually ended up passing a tapeworm amongst other organisms that we helped him cleanse as well. But the big thing here is many of you may be taking probiotics. Many of you might feel worse when you eat vegetables and higher fiber things. So this is kind of the paradox. So many people come to me, they're like, when I try to eat salads every day, my stomach hates me for it. I get bloated, I get diarrhea, I get completely backed up. It just isn't fun for me. Or like, it just doesn't agree. I get pain, I get nausea. The reason for that is when you throw probiotics into the system, you throw fiber into the system, it's kind of like fertilizer. If these organisms, the bad ones, the pathogens, are like weeds, if you throw fertilizer on a lawn with weeds without plucking the weeds, yes, the grass is going to grow, but what grows with the grass? The weeds. So this is where you might be feeding the organisms as well, and you actually might be making yourself worse in the process. So I always say start with addition by subtraction. Think about what you can remove versus what you can add in. And this is one way where you can really work on your diet, cut out the bigger things, but you want to start there. You don't want to go too far. So with him, we helped him eliminate these things. Now, warning in advance, if anybody has a sensitive stomach, I would just look away at this moment just until we complete the slide. But these are actually pictures of what some of our patients pass. So you can see these long organisms. Here's actually some Ascaris. Here's actually some liver flukes that have come out of patients. And here's the kicker, guys. I didn't give them an antibiotic. I didn't give them like a pharmaceutical medication. I didn't even give them things that are necessarily like directed at one thing only. Like when you start to work with the body as a whole, many of these things start to come out. So that's why regardless of if you're in amazing health, or if you're someone who has some minor energy issues and brain fog, or you're someone with an autoimmune condition or a gut challenge, you want to make sure you don't have these in the system. The overgrowth of these really causes you issues over time. So here's an email from Gabe a little while later after passing this stuff, us working on his gut. Thanks for checking in. Good news is the doctor, which I believe up until now thought I was lying about feeling better, could find no sign of active Crohn's. So this was his follow-up colonoscopy. I like to believe she included the term active because she doesn't want to refute a previous doctor's diagnosis about an incurable chronic disease. We are still waiting for biopsy results, and those were negative. So the big thing here is we didn't treat his Crohn's. I never gave him a single thing for his Crohn's. He had a dysfunctional gut. I worked with him on his dysfunctional gut. So this is where we really, really focused. So that's the big three things I wanted to share with you guys tonight. And that's where I really wanted to bring your attention. So just to give you a quick recap of what we talked about, the gut is the unsung hero of the immune system. And you really want to also take that for what it is. I didn't say that's the only way to get rid of coronavirus or battle coronavirus. But again, if I have to battle something, I want to go in there with the best possible health I could possibly have. I want to be the best possible version of myself. And we talked about why the gut is quote unquote 80% of your immune system. It's because of that mucosal immunity. So that's why it's your first line of immune defense. And then your brain also connects to it. So the fear going on right now, you really want to be careful about how that impacts you. So you want to really feel empowered after today. And I truly hope that's how you guys feel, is empowered. Like, yes, a lot of this in my control. What's not in my control, I'm not going to worry about. What's in my control, I'm going to make myself the healthiest person possible. I am going to still wash my hands. I am still going to make sure I'm not inhaling or ingesting any of this stuff or going to high risk areas. But foundationally, the power is yours, because guess what? We are amazing human beings. We have human ingenuity. We're going to pass this pandemic in the near future. No matter what, we're going to get past it. But guess what? Who knows what else we see in our lifetime. So don't let this be a one-off. Don't let this be like a single fear time. Use this to springboard the most amazing health of your life. So I just want to ask you guys, what is your biggest takeaway? Just shoot it in the comments below. And for those of you who do want to stay in touch with us, Sachin just posted in the comments our Living Proof community as well. So feel free to join our Facebook community. And that's an awesome group for like-minded individuals. So thank you for sharing the information. I know a lot of questions are coming out about what did you give them? How did you address it? So I'll talk to you guys about that in a moment. So I'll hold off on that one. Thank you so much for the kind words, Gloria. Reduce stress and watch what I eat. Awesome. Attitude of gratitude. I love that. And mindset is key. Gut health is everything. Awesome, Pauline. There is hope. So that warms my heart, because that's what I try to instill in everybody I encounter. There's always hope. Don't let anybody take your hope away. How do we find out if we have gut issues? So there's numerous ways based on your symptoms. There's testing that can be done through an intake process. You can find out as well. I'll share some information about that with you in a moment. Vagus nerve directing the brain. Absolutely. Not too many people know about the vagus nerve, right? Believing in myself and keeping healthy habits. So my pleasure, guys. So I just got a couple more things I want to talk to you guys about here. So this is where I get a little technical with you guys. So bear with me. This is how we create health. So for anybody suffering with any health issue, or anybody that's looking for optimal performance, whether you're a professional athlete or anybody that's in a performance space, or you're somebody going through a health crisis, what I'm about to describe to you, this is going to be actually probably the most powerful lesson in this presentation, because this is where you want to work. This is how you want to create health. So what I have pictured here, we call this the drainage funnel. So this is a funnel, and just like a funnel, things can get clogged, right? So when you're, for example, pouring some old oil back into a container, you're going to use a funnel, but if that funnel is clogged at any point, you're going to create a mess. So at the top of this, we have our cells. So if you guys recall from an earlier point in the presentation, I mentioned we have about 30 something trillion human cells. We have about double that in gut organisms in our gut. This is what makes us, right? So from the cellular side, everything is a cell. Like what you guys see on me, my skin, my hair, like everything that's visible, skin cells, hair cells. What's my liver made out of? Liver cells, lung cells, different types of gut cells. So everything inside of us is made from a cell. And your cells have this energy unit called a mitochondria. So your mitochondria is the battery, the power plant of the cell. Now, for example, I have my cell phone here, and we all have smartphones these days, right? These smartphones are amazing pieces of technology, but how useless would this phone be if it only held a 5% charge or a 10% charge, right? That would be quite annoying. Well, guess what? Your cells might only hold a 5, 10, 20% charge because you have mitochondrial dysfunction. Your mitochondria don't work right. And this is why, like, you might have one priority health concern, which might be the diabetes, which might be the skin, which might be the gut, but you're also probably going to have really bad energy. You're going to have really poor workout recovery. You're going to have really poor brain function. You're going to have really poor digestion. Like, different parts of our body are going to break down. And this because the cells that make us, when one of them don't work right, a lot of them don't work right. So this is where we can have multiple organs that are under functioning. And then what cells turn into are those organs and tissues. So organs are one side. So this is where specific organ dysfunction comes from. But then the tissue side, tissues are these things in our body that create hormones, that create immune support molecules as well. So as I mentioned earlier, that 80% of the immune system in your gut, it's in your GALT, your gut-associated lymphoid tissue. What is your thyroid gland? A tissue. What is your adrenal glands? A tissue. What are your ovaries, testicles? A tissue. So if anybody has hormonal dysfunction, oftentimes it comes from a cellular process. And then all of these organs, they drain into our master sewage system, our lymphatic system. So this is what carries waste away. So when we have organisms in our body that shouldn't be there, or they're out of balance, it really backs up our lymphatic system. The sewers in our body just overflow with garbage. And then comes the bottom of this funnel, the last two things. So back to my analogy, where's the worst spot on a funnel to have a clog? Probably the little skinny part at the bottom where you can't even get your hand into, like you got to like pretty much fiddle with it to get that clog out. So the bottom of that funnel is your liver and bile ducts. So your liver makes this magical juice called bile. It's a green juice, and it helps us digest fat. It also acts as an antibiotic, protecting you from bugs, but it also helps you filter out fat soluble toxins. So a lot of waste we accumulate on a day-to-day basis, it goes through there. And when this gets congested, if you follow it over to the left, we can end up with poor looking skin. We can have acne. We can have dry skin. We might have eczema. Psoriasis might be involved. This is where the kidneys become involved. This is where you might notice bubbly, frothy urine, or we go to the bathroom way more, or we're now prone to bladder and kidney infections. This is where a lot of it comes from, this backup. And then the lungs, shortness of breath, mucus congestion, always having issues where you get exposed to a bug or something and it affects your lungs. So this is all from these liver and bile ducts. and then they dump into your colon. What we've spent the majority of today talking about is the foundation of the gut. So how many of you, and you guys can write it in the comments, have taken supplements and felt way worse? How many of you have tried to kill things off and felt terrible in the process? It's called a detox reaction or a Herxheimer reaction. Have any of you experienced that in the past? So I'm just going to check here. Yeah, so absolutely. Wow. So I wasn't expecting that many people, but you can see this is a problem, right? So if you try to flush a clogged toilet, would that be very beneficial? Would that be a good, smart thing to do? Probably not. Eventually, that water is going to overflow and probably make an even bigger mess. Well, when the colon overflows from the bottom and then the liver and bile ducts overflow, those two blockages, they dirty up the lymphatic system. That doesn't work well. They dirty up organs and tissues, and then they cause cellular dysfunction. So this is how you create true health in your body. If you really look after these two foundations of health, on one side, you have your cells and the mitochondria, and on the other side, you have your drainage systems, which includes your gut. You're going to get really far with your health. And this is why there's a reason we feel unwell. There's a reason people don't feel good. It's a logical reason as well. So we want to really understand this. And this is how I work with patients in practice is we map this out. We see where things are going wrong. So even with the parasitic organisms, I don't just help patients and support their body in naturally eliminating those. You want to do the prep work as well. There's always going to be steps. So I don't recommend anybody just jump right into it. And then the roadmap to your best life, it requires a careful and honest assessment of your current state. So I know many of you asked me, what did you use? Like, well, what were the things that you used? Well, I have a lot of things that I use. So, and I wouldn't just generally recommend something right off the bat to somebody. You need guidance. Like that would be very irresponsible of me, but you need a strategy. So I know this is an online presentation, but if we didn't give you the exact link for this webinar, do you think you would have found this webinar? No, right? You have to type in the exact address to even make it into this room. So you want to make sure you map out that strategy. So the reality of the current situation today, the world's not getting any healthier, guys. Obesity rates are through the roof. Metabolic condition rates are through the roof. And those numbers are only increasing. You look at the healthcare budgets of the majority, like every country that I can think of, any bigger country, healthcare costs are expected to rise. Like there's not going to be enough tax dollars left to support our quote unquote sick care system. So now is the best time to take responsibility, become the doctor of the future, take care of your body, because a lot of this health, and I would argue most health starts in your own home. It starts from that foundation. There's a major need for people to get healthy right now. And we don't only need people to get healthy right now to be healthy, but to empower others. Like if we're in this all together, I want to hear from you guys. If you guys have an amazing story, if you guys have inspired others through your own journey, I would like you to do that, because people don't even know the information that was presented today. We have many of you on this call, but there's many of you who may have signed up for today, but not joined us live. So a lot of people are not getting this information right now. Everybody is extremely stressed out. There's like the whole economic situation. People are at home now. Work from home life is an adaptation needed. Kids are at home, so people are kind of working a double job. We're all kind of going crazy. We're socially isolated. Fear and anxiety is at an all-time high. So there's a logical reason why people are feeling unwell today, but really we want to set ourselves apart. We want to make sure that we work on this from the ground up. So I wanted to give you guys a very special offer today, or a special opportunity, I should say. I'm doing a bonus masterclass training. So on today's, I didn't want to just dive into the technical stuff. I know even today, the technical stuff I did share, for some of you, it might have been your first time hearing about it, but I didn't want to overwhelm anybody today. The key word today was empower. I want to give everybody hope. This is in your control. This is something that you can work on. But for those of you that want to take a deeper dive, for those of you that want to learn how we get these results in our patients and how we help patients work on their detox pathways and their mitochondria and their cells, I'm going to be hosting a bonus masterclass training. So Sachin just posted the link in the comments if you guys just want to click on the chat box, and we can always send that afterwards as well. But it is in there. I would take note. I would click on it right away, just because oftentimes if we put something off, we're going to forget about it. But we wanted to offer this to you guys as a solution to really see how we can help you out in the long term, and how we can go further along this journey as well. But that's the core of the presentation, guys. I hope that was super helpful. And I hope you guys got a lot of insight out of that, and really take control of your health. It's in your control way more than you think it is.
Wow, thanks, Ricky. There was a lot of engagement, lots of questions that came in, lots of thank yous that are pouring in right now. So appreciate the insights and information that you provided. People are asking for more information. Certainly, we are glad and certainly happy to help. Click on the link that I shared, and you'll be able to get to the masterclass. We're going to send everyone who registered an invitation to the masterclass should you decide to join us for that. I really love the analogies you provided, and I loved the insights in doing things in the right order. I think that's where a lot of people get hung up. And I also feel it's important to emphasize that you don't just build a healthy immune system, you build a healthy everything because the same blood goes everywhere. So, this idea that, oh, what pills or what supplements or what do I do to build my immune system up? The, as soon as somebody says that, as soon as a practitioner says that, as soon as a person says that, you already know that their paradigm and perspective on health is broken, and that person will never be able to have good, profound health, right? It's just like it's like building a house. It's like you want the whole house to be nice. You don't want just certain rooms of it to be nice, right? You don't want just certain systems of the house to be nice. You want all of them to work synergistically together. So you would never install like a beefed up electrical system and then the other stuff in your house is crappy, right? You want to have everything working the way it's supposed to so you get the maximum function out of it, right? You wouldn't install upgraded electrical wiring and then have crappy switches. You need everything working the way it's supposed to. So your perspective on health is really important, especially at this time, as many of us are reevaluating our health. We're assessing what is important to us, and we're probably paying attention to our health now more than ever before. So I'm going to post this link again so everyone can see it. Just click on the link where it says, join this masterclass. Does it let you do that, Ricky? Let me see. You might have to
They
copy
may
the
have to
link.
copy paste it.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know why it's doing that, but you may have to copy and paste the link. And again, we'll send an email to everybody to be able to register. But as we're kind of reevaluating and reassessing our perspective on health, just look at the big picture, guys. And one analogy that really strikes a chord is think of your health like a diamond. So if you have a diamond and you only polish one side of that diamond, one facet of that diamond, it's never going to show its true brilliance. What makes a diamond shine and makes it refract light and gives it its brilliance is how each facet is properly polished. So we encounter, and Ricky, you can verify this, but we encounter so many people that come to us and they're so focused on that one facet of the diamond and they're missing all the other facets. And so they never achieve true health and their diet's perfect, but everything else in their life is not quite so perfect. So think of your diet like maybe that's the tabletop of the diamond. For those of you ladies that are into diamonds, or even guys, I know that I probably knew more about diamonds than I care to know, especially when I bought my wife her engagement ring many years ago now. But the table is the top facet, and that's what people focus on. But the brilliance comes from shining everything else. So instead of doing one thing really well, let's do everything a little bit better. Instead of doing one thing 100% better, let's do 10 things 10% better, and we can capitalize on the compound effect. So what Ricky's going to do next week is it's Wednesday at 7, so same time next week. We're going to do a masterclass training where we can dive a little bit deeper and answer some of the questions that you might have. We want it to bring everyone up to speed so that you can have a little bit more certainty, have a little bit more confidence. You can know that the sky isn't falling, consciousness is rising, there's always a solution. Usually it's you. That's the good news, and sometimes that can be the bad news. But this is a time for all of us to do some deep work, deep reflection, ask ourselves important yet sometimes difficult or even challenging questions, and either find those answers or become those answers. And so thanks, Ricky, for this awesome information. Did you want to maybe take about 10, 13 minutes for some Q&A, and then we'll wrap things up?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for sharing that. That was beautifully said. And Like now's the best time in history, right? Like the only time in history is now, right? It's the present moment. So now's the best time to really empower yourself, take control of your health, and really realize it is in your control. I know I've been talking to a lot of patients about this recently, but the one thing that I've really picked up in people who struggle to get better, or they've been trying from a health perspective to get better, is it's the mindset piece. So and you could tie it into the gut brain axis, but sometimes it even goes deeper than that. Is they may feel like a victim right now. So a lot of people from early childhood take on a victim mindset, and they feel like victims. So this is when I might work with somebody and they feel the supplement should do all the heavy lifting for them, or like some things should change like in a snap of a finger. But you really want to take all of these levels into account. You want to take every side of that diamond into account, right? And part of it is going to be the mindset piece. So that's why when we work with patients, that funnel I showed you, that's the foundational layer. But we also coach you on the lifestyle piece. We also want to make sure that from a mindset perspective, you see that there's so much opportunity here, that there's so much good that's here. That it's not just a silver lining. Like I hate that term silver lining. Like it's a diamond lining, right?
Hmm. So there's a question that came in regarding cravings for cheese and dairy. Already gluten free, but I find it hard to give up cheese and dairy. And so you want to talk about casomorphins and maybe because this person also is saying that the nut cheeses and nutritional yeast don't do it for her, and it's because of the compounds that are actually found in cheese that make it super super addictive. I think cheese is probably the hardest thing to give up because it has some of the most highly addictive compounds in it.
Yeah, absolutely. So cheese contains casomorphins, gluten contains gluteomorphins. So they're these highly addictive compounds that bind to your opiate receptors. So essentially what you're going through is withdrawal. Like that's why you're craving that cheese. You give it up, you start to feel sad, you start to crave it, you start to need it. So in order to break it, the first step and first rule is always awareness. Realize that that's happening. And then you also want to make sure that uh, you see that there's a deeper connection being made. So this is where like your brain chemistry comes into it as well. Like you're getting a giant pleasure response when you get that cheese. You're getting a dopamine response, and you make dopamine, and dopamine is your motivational chemical when you expect a reward. So you not only want to realize that that cheese it's doing that to you, and if you were able to persist without it for a period of time, that withdrawal period should pass. But you also want to replace a habit in there that's very pleasurable for you. So when you get a craving for cheese, you should do something else that gives you pleasure. And that could be read a book, that could be go spend some time, go for a walk. But early on, you're going to have to do this. It's kind of like the worst thing you can do, and not comparing you to one directly, but the worst thing you could do to somebody recovering from alcoholism is take them to the liquor store, right? So you don't want this in your environment at all times.
If you never want to eat dairy again, there's probably some documentaries you can watch that would make you never touch that stuff and very quickly remove the addiction. So we're not going to go down that rabbit hole, but it's probably worthwhile knowing where cheese and dairy products come from behind the scenes. And at least energetically, you'll probably understand why this is so terrible for human beings. Now, I'm not saying that you have to be perfect, but certainly knowing where your food comes from, sources, how it's produced, the energy that goes into it, the spiritual potency of the food that we eat, the karmic currency of the food that we eat, all of those things matter. And if the way we produce our food kills the animal, it probably kills the consumer. So it's just something, some hard truth to kind of deal with. Yes, it tastes great. A lot of things taste great, but that doesn't necessarily make them good for us. So, if we strictly rely on the chemistry of our body, the chemistry of our body will crave those foods, but that's where our logical mind comes in. That's where it's mind over chemistry. And, you just have to, I don't want to say grow up. That's not the gentle term that I want to use, but we just have to really become stewards of our own health and realize that something's bad for us and have the ability to control our mind so that, it's not our chemistry that controls us, it's our consciousness that controls us. All right, let's see. So some people were asking, Ricky, what's the youngest person you can work with?
That's a tougher one because it can vary, but like at minimum usually 2 years old, because just general supplement recommendations and things like that, most of the time you can't even give to somebody younger than 2 years old. So generally that's my cutoff. There's been some like close exceptions to that, but that would be on a case by case basis.
Okay, great. And probably a good thing for them to attend the masterclass next week, because we're going to be going deeper into that and maybe answering more questions. Another question, probably a bit of a rabbit hole, but how does the gut affect diseases like Parkinson's and dementia?
Yeah, that is a bit of a rabbit hole. So the gut, and I'm sure from a functional neurology perspective, you can see the gut makes kind of all things worse. So Parkinson's and dementia are autoimmune conditions. Well, Parkinson's is an autoimmune condition. Dementia is kind of in an autoimmune category as well, especially when it progresses to Alzheimer's. But it can start with early metabolic damage. So if somebody is insulin resistant from a very young age, insulin resistance is pre-diabetes. And I would argue 80 to 90% of the patients that come to me, they test positive for some extent of insulin resistance. Uh, that can actually lead to Parkinson's. That can actually lead to brain destruction, which leads to dementia, which can turn on Alzheimer's. So if you go to like Google right now and you type in type 3 diabetes, they call it Alzheimer's disease today. So that's the new interchangeable definition. And then with Parkinson's, that's an autoimmune condition. So if you have over immune activity in the gut, that's going to directly make a negative impact on the brain.
Okay, thank you. Great answer. Let's see. And if you have some nice compliments for Ricky, please throw them in there. We always appreciate some positive feedback. We could all use some positivity right now. Um, okay, looks like everyone is joining. You've got over 100 people that joined up for the masterclass, which is awesome. Um, yes, there will always be a replay. We always record what we offer, but of course, in the replay, we can't answer your questions. So that's the benefit of coming on live. Let's see here. Love you guys. We love you too, Cheryl. Katrina says, thank you. Paulette says, great info. Where do I sign up for the masterclass? Let me share that link where you can go and sign up. So just look in the chat there. You might have to copy the link. For some reason, Zoom has been acting a little funny. So you may have to copy that link and then just paste it in your browser and then go ahead and register. We'll also send everyone who registered a follow-up email just reminding you of the masterclass. And if you want to dive deeper and ask questions, then we're happy to do that as well. Joy says, Dr. Brar has been amazing to work with in the Gut Check pilot program. So grateful, especially the timing. Thank you, Joy. I know Dr. Brar appreciates that.
Thank you so much, Joy.
Vic is asking, maybe we'll wrap it up with two more questions. Vic is asking, how do I strengthen my vagus nerve? I know you'll probably cover that in the masterclass, but maybe you can give some nuggets here.
Yeah, so the vagus nerve, because it innervates all of these organs, you can sort of quote unquote take advantage of the areas it innervates. So there's functional neurology tricks, like just even when you're at home by yourself, play your favorite song, sing along to it loudly. Humming is very powerful as well. This is why a lot of meditative practices, religious practices, they'll start with vibrational words. So something like Om, it has that vibrational characteristic. The vagus nerve supplies your voice box and also your palate muscles that allow you to say ah. So when you start to hum, you actually activate that vagus nerve. Then, so I call all of those things taking a walk for your vagus nerve. So walks are great, but you can also go to the gym for your vagus nerve and really strengthen it. So one of my favorite exercises there is gargling. So you literally take some water, throw it back, and you gargle at the top of your lung. So it's not like a mouthwash weak gargle. You gargle really loudly. And that gargling, when you do it for 2.5, 3 minutes and you build up to that, it's kind of like adding more weight to your exercise. You're getting stronger and stronger. And that's actually strengthening your vagus nerve. So your vagus nerve is just like similar to a muscle, like a muscle gains muscle tone, your vagus nerve will gain nerve tone as well.
Yeah, and a quick tip there to know if you're doing it correctly is if you start tearing. So if you start tearing while you're gargling, then that means you're actually doing it aggressively enough to create that stimulation of the vagus nerve. Another thing that we do, this is something we did since we were children, not necessarily doing it to stimulate the vagus nerve, but is tongue scraping. So if you scrape your tongue, tongue scraping is actually not to clean your tongue, it's actually to stimulate digestion. So you can do that as well. Gagging yourself will also stimulate the vagus nerve. Humming, chanting, like, all the things that Dr. Barr talked about are great. A couple other questions that came in, Ricky, is do you work with phone and online appointments? I think that's a very relevant question. So you want to hit that up?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've been working with patients through phone, through Zoom. So it's just like this, where it feels like a face to face, and I can share my screen. The session can be recorded, so there's a lot of advantages. You don't have to sit in traffic to make it out to the office or anything like that. So absolutely, and especially with the way things are going. We want to make sure we're safe, but more importantly, our patients are safe as well. So it does still help, and we don't miss anything in that process.
I saw this interesting article. I was reading it earlier, and then I saw the pictures on my computer earlier this evening. And for the first time in 30 years, people can see the Himalayan mountains. And the area was so polluted that you couldn't see the mountains even from relatively close. And now the pollution is lifted because of the quarantines in India, and you can actually see these mountains. So it kind of the direction our company has been moving in for many years is to reduce our carbon footprint and to increase efficiency. So if you have a half-hour appointment with your practitioner and you've got to take the afternoon off work, that's very inefficient. If you've got to make your way through traffic, that's very inefficient. If you've got to fly in to come and see us, which some people do, that's very inefficient. So the cool thing about technology is that we've been kind of corona proofing our business long before this ever happened. And many of us actually work from home. Dr. Brar smoothly transitioned to working from home, and I don't know if he's going to go back because it's such a efficient way of doing of serving people. And what we work on in our practice is the things you can't see and touch. So we're working on the biochemistry inside of your body. So we're not physically examining you for something. And the testing that we do is, if that's appropriate for your case, is done from the comfort of your home. So even if you were to come and see us in person, we wouldn't lay our hands on you because we're not providing a physical examination or a physical service. We're working on the chemistry, we're working on the mindset, and we're working on the internal workings and functions. So we've always kind of been able to work with people, remotely. So I think it's the smart approach because, why not get healthy from the comfort of your home, right? Why not reduce your carbon footprint? Why not have your appointments start exactly on time and end exactly on time and not, have delays? It's pretty cool to be able to run like clockwork in a practice and save people time, energy, money and effort. So, and it's a much more relaxed approach too, because we want people to be in their comfort zone. Sometimes people will come into the office and they're stressed out from the traffic that they had to encounter, or, all those other things that hurdles that they have to jump through to come there. And, some people prefer face to face. Certainly this is face to face, right? So, it's important to note that some people prefer face to face. Some people prefer working with the best, right? And sometimes you can't work with the best and be face to face unless you're willing to travel the distance. So, Dr. Brar works with people from all over the world, and it's cool that technology enables us to do that. Another question that came in, I just want to scroll back up here. I think this one's important. I know we said we ended 8:30, but let's end with this one. And that's a question that is, does addition by subtraction apply to supplements and food? And this is actually very relevant for our masterclass. So I do want to cover it. So the anonymous attendee is saying that I've been instructed in the past to take gobs of supplements. They have been running and ruining my life. Finally got sick of taking them, then stopped. Is that too extreme of a reaction? What's your take on that?
So the first question I would ask is, how did you feel when you stopped, right? So like I can get pretty technical to answer this, but a lot of the supplements that are conventionally recommended, they're oftentimes, and no fault of anyone, but they're given either out of sequence. So you might take something too early that has zero net benefit, or a minor net benefit that goes away the second you stop taking it. But like, as much as we use this term, it's the factual term. It's, you got to chase the root cause. So this is where addition by subtraction absolutely applies. A lot of times when patients come to me with a garbage bag full of supplements, I know that I don't have a patient I just need to give more supplements to. I need to talk to them on the mindset piece. I need to talk to them on like like you're not reliant, your body is not dependent on these to feel better. You can feel better tomorrow if you want it to feel better tomorrow, but you also want to be taking things with a high ROI, a high return on your investment. So that funnel diagram I showed you guys, if you operate from that as a starting point and you really work to remove those clogs first, you're going to get a lot further. But think about taking like a laundry list of supplements, but the toilet's clogged, right? Or the sink is clogged. You wouldn't just turn on the tap full blast if the sink is clogged. It's only going to lead to poor outcomes. So oftentimes when patients come off of supplements, they often mentally think they're going to get worse, and they're surprised when they don't. They often will like just have like a panic attack. Will it be like, oh my God, I went from like all this support to none. Oftentimes I'll start them on almost a clean slate where they're maybe just taking their vitamin D as an example. But yeah, absolutely, it applies. Like that's such a tough one, because I'm sure those supplements were recommended to you by somebody who truly wants to help you, and or even the knowledge you acquired to truly help yourself. But knowing the type of supplement is very important. Like supplements are like a good, it's going to be like one of the biggest industries, right? It's there's just so many out there. It's tough to navigate that world. So you want to move with a system. There has to be some logic there.
Yeah, and a good thing that that I'll say, if you're not in Ricky's gut check program, then we'll make sure that we add everyone who registered for this in that program. He teaches you 30 strategic ways to improve your own GI health and really your own entire health, because everything's connected, and without the use of supplementation. Like, we're not big in our practice on supplementation unless we have documented evidence that you need it, and then we're going to try to put you, or not try, but we're going to put you on the right protocols in the right sequence at the right time. So think of it like a car wash, right? You could have really good soap, but if the car isn't wet, then it's not going to, the soap's not going to be able to do its job. You could have really good brushes, but if there isn't soap on the car, you're going to scratch the paint. So you've got to understand that there's an order to things, and some people will jump into the third step of a protocol because that's what worked for their friend, or they watched a webinar and they learned about it, and that's actually quite dangerous. So you want to make sure that you're following a strategic order, as Ricky outlined earlier. You don't want to flush a clogged toilet, right? It's just going to make a mess of things. And I know that's kind of a graphic visual, but if that's ever happened to you, you kind of know, like, yeah, I need to fix this clog first before I try flushing this thing again. Flushing, it's not working. So some people will think of it like throwing supplements into the toilet. It's not going to help, right? You've got to fix the underlying mechanism. And ironically, Ricky, as we were speaking, somebody from Vancouver Island noted, she filled out the application to become a patient, and she says, I know I can't work with Dr. Brar due to geography, but I'm hoping of a referral to someone in South Vancouver Island. So we need to make it clear to her that we can work with people, right? So clearly she's looking to work with the best. She saw you at a live workshop, must have been online, and she wants somebody who has your knowledge and skill set. And thankfully, thanks to technology, we're able to help people anywhere across Canada for sure. And depending on what program they're in, we can help them really anywhere in the world. So, I want to honor your time, brother, with your family, and be respectful of that. Give your family a big hug and kiss from all of us. And let's get you back to them. And then we'll be sharing this replay with everybody. So stay tuned for that. Let's see you next week at the masterclass, where Ricky's going to talk a little bit more about a big project he's been working on for the last 6 months, which I think is going to be really powerful for all of you, especially those of you that are looking to take it really to the, to become the best version of yourself. That's really what the world is calling for right now, is for you to show up as you, not a watered down version of you, not a weak and tired version of you, not a sick and gangly version of you. It's right now the world needs the best version of you, and the best version of you is a healthy version of you. And a healthy version of you starts by having global parameters around health and doing things that help you heal and regenerate from the inside out. So not just in our guts, but what's happening in our mind. That's that's very vital to the world. And Helena says, yes, the world needs this right now more than ever. If your health is important to you, I couldn't imagine that it wasn't. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here still. But we're here to help. We're here to support you, and we honor you and thank you for joining us. And Ricky, thanks again for this powerful information. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. And thank you for your time as well. I know you have a beautiful way with words and analogies, so I'm sure many of our attendees have appreciated the analogies as well. But thank you for your time. Have a great night, and love everybody that attended. Send you guys lots of love in this crazy time, and take control. That's the take home message. Feel empowered.
Okay. Good night, everyone.
Bye.